whispered in his mind. Was this journey worth it? Then, in a quiet village surrounded by golden fields and rolling hills, a young boy sat beneath the shade of an old baobab tree. While other children played, he gazed into the distance, imagining a future far beyond the borders of his home. He was not like the others, where they saw only the daily rhythm of village life. He saw possibilities. He watched the traders who came from distant lands, the travelers who spoke of cities where the streets buzzed with life, and the elders who told stories of men who had changed their fate through wisdom and hard work. His dreams were vast, but the world around him was small. His family lived humbly, and most of the villagers believed in following tradition, growing crops, tending livestock, and living as their ancestors had. But deep inside, he knew he was meant for more. One evening, as the sun painted the sky in hues of orange and purple, he shared his dreams with his mother. She smiled gently, placing a hand on his shoulder. Dreaming is good, my child. But dreams without action are like seeds never planted. That night, as he lay on his woven mat, he made a silent promise to himself. He would not let his dreams fade into the wind. He would plant his seed of ambition and nurture it until it grew into something great. The journey had begun. The village elders often gathered beneath the great tree in the center of the village, their voices weaving stories of wisdom and experience. The boy sat among them, eager to listen. One evening, as the fire crackled and the elders spoke of the past, he gathered the courage to ask, "How does one change their future?" The oldest among them, a man whose face was lined with years of knowledge, smiled. "A river does not carve through stone in a day, child. It takes time, patience, and persistence." Another elder, known for his wisdom and trade, added, "A man's future is built by the small choices he makes each day. The hands that plant today will harvest tomorrow." The boy absorbed their words, realizing that success would not come overnight. He needed to start small, to take steps each day toward his dreams. As the gathering ended, one elder placed a small seed in the boy's palm. "Plant this," he said. "Care for it, watch it grow. Let it teach you the patience you will need for your journey." The boy looked at the seed, understanding its meaning. His dreams were just like this tiny seed, full of potential, but needing time and effort to grow. That night, he carefully placed the seed into the soil near his home. It was the first step toward a future he was determined to build. The boy's mornings began before the sun kissed the horizon. He carried water from the river, helped his mother in the fields, and tended to his father's livestock. Each task was demanding, but he never complained. He knew that strength was built through labor, and discipline was forged in routine. Yet, as he worked, his mind wandered to his dreams. He longed to learn more, to read books like The Traveling Merchants, and to understand the ways of the world beyond his village. But time was scarce, and his duties came first. Some days, exhaustion whispered doubts into his heart. Would he ever escape this cycle? Was he destined to live as his ancestors had? But then, he would glance at the small patch of soil where he had planted the elder's seed. It had not yet sprouted, but he knew it was growing beneath the surface. One evening, after a long day's work, he sat beside his father, watching the sunset. "Hard work is good," his father said, "but never forget why you work. The man who labors without purpose is like a traveler walking in circles." The boy nodded, his determination renewed. His struggles were not barriers, they were stepping stones. He would endure, he would grow, and one day, his efforts would bear fruit. One afternoon, as the boy rested beneath the baobab tree, a merchant arrived in the village. He carried sacks of grain, bolts of colorful fabric, and, most intriguingly, several worn books. The boy's heart raced as he watched the merchant display his treasures. He had never owned a book before, but he had always been fascinated by the few he had glimpsed in the hands of travelers. He stepped forward. "Sir, may I see one of your books?" The merchant, an elderly man with kind eyes, studied him. "Books are valuable, young one. Do you know how to read?" The boy hesitated. "Not yet, but I want to learn." The merchant smiled and handed him a small book with faded pages. "Then take this. Knowledge is like a lamp in the darkness. Use it well." Grateful but unsure how to begin, the boy sought out the village teacher, an old man who had once studied in the city. "Will you teach me?" he asked eagerly. The teacher nodded. "If you are willing to work for it, I will." And so, After finishing his daily chores, the boy spent his evenings learning. The words were strange at first, but he was determined. With each page he understood, a new world unfolded before him. His journey had taken a new turn, one that would lead him closer to his dreams. Days turned into weeks, and the boy's lessons continued. Every evening, after a long day of work, he sat with the village teacher, tracing letters in the dirt and practicing new words aloud. Some nights, exhaustion threatened to overtake him. His hands ached from carrying water, his feet were sore from walking the fields, and his mind felt heavy with the weight of his new lessons. Doubt crept in. Was he truly capable of learning? One evening, frustrated with a passage he could not understand, he closed the book with a sigh. The teacher watched him in silence before speaking. "Do you remember the seed you planted?" The boy nodded. "Have you seen it grow yet?" "No," the boy admitted. "But I know it will." The teacher smiled. "Then treat knowledge the same way. Some things take time. Just because you do not see progress today does not mean it is not happening beneath the surface." The boy took a deep breath and reopened his book. If the seed needed patience to grow, so did he. The next morning, as he stepped outside, he noticed something in the soil where he had planted the elder's seed, a tiny green sprout pushing through the earth. It was a sign, and he would not give up. As the boy's knowledge grew, so did his responsibilities. Learning to read was not enough. He now dreamed of traveling beyond the village to gain more wisdom. But dreams required sacrifice. To afford books and lessons, he had to work harder. He offered to help the blacksmith, gathering wood for the fire and pumping the bellows. In return, the blacksmith gave him a few coins, which he saved carefully. Some of his friends mocked him. "Why waste time on words and books?" they asked. "Your father farms, and you will too." But the boy only smiled. "A tree does not grow overnight," he said. "One day, you will see what I am building." There were nights when exhaustion tempted him to stop. Nights when his body ached, and sleep called louder than his books. But he reminded himself, every sacrifice was a step towards something greater. One evening, as he sat with the village teacher, struggling to understand a complex passage, the teacher placed a hand on his shoulder. "You carry many burdens, child. But remember, the heaviest load is not on your back, it is in your heart. Carry it with purpose, and it will never break you." The boy nodded. He had chosen this path, and he would walk it, no matter how heavy the load became. One afternoon, while delivering firewood to the blacksmith, the boy overheard a conversation between two strangers. They spoke of a great school in a distant city, a place where knowledge flowed like a river. His heart pounded. A school, a place where learning was not a stolen moment after work, but a way of life. He had to know more. Summoning his courage, he approached the men. "Excuse me, sirs. How does one get to this school?" The older man chuckled. "It is not easy, boy. Only those who can afford it may enter." The boy's excitement dimmed, but only for a moment. Money was a wall, but walls could be climbed. "Thank you," he said, bowing respectfully. That night, as he sat with his teacher, he shared what he had learned. The teacher listened, then sighed. "Many dream of leaving, but few succeed. The journey is long, and the road is cruel." The boy met his gaze. "But it is possible." The teacher studied him, then nodded. "For those who refuse to give up, yes." The boy smiled. That was all he needed to hear. Determined to reach the great school, the boy sought advice from the village elders. Some shook their heads, telling him to be content with what he had. Others admired his ambition but warned of the dangers beyond the village. One evening, as he sat under the baobab tree, the merchant who had once gifted him a book passed through again. The boy rushed to him. "Sir, do you know the way to the city?" The merchant studied him. "You still have that fire in your eyes." He nodded. "Yes, I know the way. But the road is harsh. Bandits lurk in the shadows, and hunger follows those who travel unprepared." "I will be ready," the boy promised. The merchant smiled. "Then I will help you." He handed the boy a map, tracing a path with his finger. "Here is a hidden trail, safer than the main road. It is longer, but if you are patient, you will reach your destination." The boy took the map with trembling hands. His dream was no longer just a wish. It was a road waiting to be walked. Now he just had to take the first step. The boy knew that leaving the village was not just about walking away. It was about preparing for the journey ahead. He needed supplies, knowledge of the land, and above all, courage. For weeks, he worked harder than ever. He saved every coin, packed dried food, and studied the map until he could see the path in his dreams. The night before his departure, he visited the village teacher one last time. "Are you afraid?" the teacher asked. The boy hesitated, then nodded. "A little." The teacher smiled. "That means you are ready. Fear is not the enemy. Stopping because of it is." At dawn, the boy stood at the village's edge. Behind him was the only life he had ever known. Ahead lay an uncertain road, stretching beyond the hills. He took a deep breath, and then, with steady steps, he walked forward. The road was not as he had imagined. The first day was easy, with the morning sun warming his back and birds guiding his way. But by nightfall, loneliness crept in, and the silence of the wilderness felt heavier than he expected. On the third day, hunger gnawed at him. He had miscalculated his food, and his supplies dwindled faster than he planned. He reminded himself why he had set out, but determination did not fill an empty stomach. On the fifth day, he met a traveler, a weary man with kind eyes. The man offered him a piece of bread in exchange for a story. So, the boy spoke of his village, of dreams bigger than fields and rivers, of a future built from knowledge. The traveler nodded. "A mind that seeks wisdom will always find a way." Encouraged, the boy continued. Every challenge tested him, but each one also proved that he was strong enough to endure. The journey had only begun, and he was learning that success was not just about reaching the destination. It was about surviving the road. Days turned into weeks as the boy pressed forward. The hidden path was safer, but it was also longer and more demanding. The sun scorched his skin during the day, and the cold bit at his bones at night. One evening, as he rested beneath an acacia tree, he spotted a distant village. His heart swelled with hope. Perhaps he could find food, water, and a little rest before continuing. But as he entered the village, he was met with wary stares. The people were kind but cautious. A village elder approached him. "Why do you travel alone, child?" "I seek knowledge," the boy answered. "I want to reach the great school in the city." The elder nodded slowly. "A noble dream, but patience is as important as ambition. Stay, learn from our people, and when the time is right, you will know when to move forward." Though eager to continue, the boy recognized wisdom in the elder's words. He agreed to stay for a short while, using the time to gain strength, learn new skills, and prepare for the final stretch of his journey. The village welcomed him with caution at first, but as days passed, the boy proved himself eager to learn and willing to help. He worked in the fields, tended animals, and listened to the stories of the elders. One day, an old craftsman noticed his curiosity. "Come, let me show you something," the man said, leading him to a small workshop filled with wooden carvings. "Patience and skill create beauty," the craftsman explained. "You cannot rush greatness." The boy watched carefully, realizing that every cut and shape had a purpose. He practiced, his hands learning precision and discipline. Over time, he understood that success, like carving wood, required both vision and effort. As he prepared to continue his journey, the village elder called him aside. "You came seeking knowledge, and you have found it, not just in books, but in life itself." He handed the boy a small carved token, a reminder that wisdom is gathered along the way. Grateful, the boy tucked the token into his pouch. He was ready to move forward, his heart wiser than before. With the village behind him, the boy walked with renewed determination. The token in his pouch reminded him that every lesson, no matter how small, would shape his journey. The road ahead split into two paths. One was a well-traveled route, bustling with merchants and travelers. The other was quiet and winding, disappearing into the hills. A passing trader noticed his hesitation. "The busy road is safer," he advised. "But the quiet road, though harder, may teach you more." The boy thought for a moment. He had not come this far by choosing the easiest path. His heart told him that growth came from challenges, so he chose the quiet road. As he walked, the silence felt familiar. The hardships were greater, steep climbs, unpredictable weather, but he felt himself growing stronger, more capable. Every step was proof that he was not just chasing success. He was becoming the person who could achieve it. The boy had grown used to traveling alone, but on the third day along the quiet road, he met someone unexpected, a girl about his age, struggling to carry a heavy basket. Without hesitation, he rushed to help. "Where are you headed?" he asked. "To my grandmother's house beyond the hills," she replied. "But the road is long, and my strength is failing me." He nodded. "Let's walk together." They traveled side by side, sharing stories and laughter. The journey felt lighter with company, and for the first time, the boy realized that success was not just about reaching a destination. It was about those who walked the path with you. When they arrived, the girl's grandmother welcomed him warmly. "Kindness has a way of returning," she said, handing him a warm meal and a small pouch of dried food for the road. As he left, the girl waved. "Good luck on your journey." The boy smiled. He had set out alone, but the world had a way of sending companions when they were needed most. The sky darkened as the boy ventured further. Thick clouds rolled in, and soon, heavy rain poured down. The road became slippery, and the cold wind bit at his skin. He found shelter beneath a rocky ledge, shivering as he waited for the storm to pass. Hours stretched into the night, and exhaustion crept in. Doubt whispered in his mind. Was this journey worth it? Then, he remembered the village elder's words. Wisdom is gathered along the way. He thought of the craftsman's patience, the girl's kindness, and the lessons he had learned. By morning, the storm had passed, leaving the earth fresh and renewed. As he stepped back onto the path, he realized something. The storm had not stopped him. It had only tested his will. Smiling, he walked forward. No challenge could shake his dream now. As the boy continued his journey, he stumbled upon a small village hidden between the hills. Unlike the other places he had visited, this village seemed untouched by time. Its people lived simply, farming the land and crafting tools by hand. Curious, he approached an elderly man weaving a basket. "Why is your village so hidden?" he asked. The man smiled. "We do not seek the world. We let the world find us." The boy stayed for a while, observing their way of life. Though they had no riches, they were content. They worked together, shared their meals, and valued wisdom over wealth. One evening, as he sat by the fire with the villagers, he realized something. Success was not just about reaching a great height. It was also about finding peace along the way. When he finally left, the elder gave him a simple piece of advice. Do not rush. The greatest journeys are those that shape the soul, not just the future. The boy nodded, carrying these words with him as he stepped back onto the road. Days later, the boy reached a bustling town where merchants called out their wares. Among them was a wealthy trader watching the crowd with sharp eyes. "You there?" the merchant called to the boy. "You have traveled far. Tell me, what is the most valuable thing a person can possess?" The boy thought for a moment. He had met craftsmen, wise elders, kind strangers, and hard-working villagers. Each had something precious, but none of them spoke of gold or silver. He answered, "Wisdom, because with it, one can build, create, and even recover what is lost." The merchant chuckled. "A wise answer. Most would say wealth or power." He handed the boy a small but heavy pouch. "Inside is something useful. Spend it wisely." When the boy opened it, he found a handful of silver coins, more than he had ever held before. He realized the merchant had tested him, not just with words, but with responsibility. As he left the marketplace, he held the pouch tightly, knowing that true wealth was not in the coins but in the choices he would make with them. The boy walked through the town, feeling the weight of the silver coins in his hands. He could buy fine clothes, delicious food, or even a comfortable place to stay. But then, he remembered why he had left home, to build a future, not just enjoy the moment. As he wandered, he saw a poor craftsman struggling to buy wood for his trade. The boy thought of the carpenter who once helped him and made a decision. He handed a few coins to the craftsman. "Use this," he said. "Your hands create things of value." The man's eyes widened in gratitude. "May your kindness return to you in ways you do not expect," he said. The boy continued, spending wisely, buying only what he needed and saving the rest. He learned that money could open doors, but how it was used defined a person's true worth. That night, he slept beneath the stars, knowing that the price of a dream was not measured in silver, but in the choices made along the way. As the boy continued his journey, he reached a crossroads where two paths stretched before him. One was smooth, lined with fruit trees and shaded by tall palms. The other was rugged, winding up steep hills with no sign of comfort. A traveler resting nearby saw his hesitation. The easy road leads to comfort but little growth. The harder path challenges you, but at its end, you will find something greater. The boy took a deep breath and chose the difficult road. His feet ached, and hunger gnawed at his stomach, but he pressed on. Along the way, he saw others who had turned back, unwilling to endure the hardships. Finally, after a long climb, he reached a plateau where an old scholar sat beneath a tree. "You have endured much," the scholar said. "Tell me, what have you learned?" The boy replied, "That every step, no matter how painful, prepares me for what is to come." The scholar smiled. "Then you are ready for the next part of your journey." The scholar led the boy to a small hut filled with ancient scrolls and books. "Knowledge is a torch in the darkness," he said. "If you wish to build your future, you must first build your mind." For days, the boy studied under the scholar, learning numbers, reading, and the ways of trade. At first, the lessons were difficult. His hands, used to carrying wood and water, now held ink-stained parchment. But he did not give up. One evening, as they sat by a dim lantern, the scholar asked, "What is the most important thing you have learned?" The boy thought for a moment before answering, "That wisdom does not come from knowing everything, but from never stopping the search for knowledge." The scholar nodded. "Then you are ready to leave. Take what you have learned and shape your own destiny." With gratitude, the boy packed his few belongings and set off once more, his heart filled not just with dreams, but with the wisdom to achieve them. The boy arrived at a bustling marketplace, filled with traders calling out their wares. He watched as merchants bartered skillfully, turning small investments into great profits. A wealthy merchant, noticing the boy's curiosity, approached him. "You have the look of someone eager to learn," he said. "Work for me, and I will teach you the ways of trade." The boy agreed, and his days were filled with counting coins, weighing goods, and learning the value of fair negotiation. But he also saw dishonest traders who cheated customers for wealth. One day, the merchant gave him a bag of silver. "Go and buy the finest fabrics at the best price," he instructed. The boy traveled across the market, negotiating wisely. When he returned, he had both quality cloth and leftover silver. The merchant smiled. "You have learned not just to trade, but to make wise decisions. That is the mark of a true merchant." With new skills and greater confidence, the boy knew he was one step closer to his dreams. The boy awoke to the sound of fierce winds howling through the village. Dark clouds loomed over the marketplace, and traders rushed to secure their goods. He had seen storms before, but this one felt different, unpredictable, wild, dangerous. His merchant mentor hurried to him. "A storm this fierce can destroy fortunes. We must act fast." He handed the boy a choice. Either guard the warehouse filled with valuable goods, or help secure the boats at the river's edge. The boy hesitated. One decision could protect the business, the other could save lives. A deep breath steadied him. "The boats," he decided. He sprinted toward the river, his heart pounding as the storm raged. The waters rose violently, threatening to pull the boats into the current. Villagers struggled against the winds, ropes slipping from their hands. "Hold on," the boy shouted. He grabbed a rope, wrapping it around a heavy post. Others followed his lead. Together, they secured the boats just as a powerful gust nearly capsized them. When the storm finally passed, the merchant found him by the river, drenched but victorious. "You saved more than boats today," he said, placing a hand on the boy's shoulder. "You saved people's livelihoods. That is the wisdom of a true leader." The boy looked out over the calm waters. His journey was far from over, but with each choice, he was shaping the future he had always dreamed of. Days after the storm, the boy noticed a mysterious man watching him from a distance. He was dressed in fine robes, his eyes sharp and calculating. Wherever the boy went, helping traders, learning new skills, the man was there, observing in silence. One evening, as the boy was preparing to close the shop, the man finally approached. "I've been watching you," he said. "You work hard, make wise choices, and think ahead. Tell me, what is your greatest dream?" The boy hesitated. He had never spoken his dream out loud before. "I want to build a future where I can help my people, where I create something that lasts beyond me." The man smiled. "A noble dream. But dreams require great sacrifice. Are you prepared to leave behind what is familiar for something greater?" The boy felt a chill. He had worked hard, learned from the best, but was he truly ready for what lay ahead? The man placed a small, golden emblem in his hand. "When you're ready to take the next step, find me." As the man walked away, the boy looked down at the emblem, its strange markings glinting under the lantern's glow. His heart pounded. His journey was far from over, and a new chapter was about to begin. The boy studied the golden emblem in his palm, its strange symbols whispering promises of something greater. He had spent years preparing, learning, growing. But was he truly ready to leave? The merchant, sensing his hesitation, spoke. Opportunities like this don't come often, but only you can decide if you're ready to take the leap. That night, the boy barely slept. He thought of his family, his village, and the sacrifices he had made. Would leaving mean abandoning them? Or could this be the key to a future where he could help them even more? By dawn, his mind was set. He packed only what he needed and made his way to the marketplace, where the mysterious man stood waiting. "You've made your choice," the man said with a knowing smile. "Good. Now, your real journey begins." As they walked away from the only life he had ever known, the boy felt a mix of fear and excitement. He wasn't just chasing a dream anymore. He was stepping into destiny. The boy followed the mysterious man beyond the village, stepping into a world he had never seen before. The road was long, winding through dense forests and rocky paths, each step taking him farther from the life he once knew. Days passed, and the journey tested him in ways he hadn't imagined. Hunger gnawed at his stomach, exhaustion weighed on his limbs, and doubt whispered in his mind. But each time he considered turning back, he remembered why he had left, to build a future greater than himself. The man rarely spoke, only watching the boy with keen eyes. But one evening, as they camped under a starlit sky, he finally said, "Every great path is filled with trials. Only those who endure reach the destination." The boy nodded, determination burning in his heart. He wasn't just enduring, he was transforming. With each challenge, he grew stronger. With each hardship, he became wiser. And as they neared their unknown destination, he realized he was no longer just a boy from a small village. He was becoming something more. The boy and the mysterious man arrived at the gates of a grand city unlike anything he had ever seen. Towering buildings stretched toward the sky, and the streets buzzed with life. But before they could enter, they were stopped by an elderly gatekeeper with piercing eyes. "Only those who can solve the riddle may pass," the gatekeeper said, his voice like rustling leaves. The boy's heart pounded. He had faced hunger, exhaustion, and fear, but this was different. The old man smiled and spoke. "I have cities, but no houses. I have mountains, but no trees. I have water, but no fish. What am I?" The boy closed his eyes, recalling every lesson he had ever learned. The answer was there. He just had to find it. Then, like a spark in the dark, it came to him. He opened his eyes and spoke with confidence. "A map." The gatekeeper's face broke into a wide grin. "You may enter." As they stepped into the city, the boy realized something. His journey wasn't just about strength and endurance. It was about knowledge, wisdom, and the ability to see beyond the obvious. He had passed the test. But what awaited him inside the city? As the boy stepped through the gates, his eyes widened in awe. The city was alive with voices calling out from market stalls, blacksmiths hammering steel, and scholars reciting wisdom to eager listeners. Every corner was filled with knowledge, skill, and opportunity. The mysterious man turned to him. "This is a place where dreams are built, but it is also where many lose themselves." The boy watched as some people toiled endlessly, never advancing, while others seized opportunities and rose to greatness. He realized success wasn't about merely being present. It was about knowing what to do with the chance given. He walked through the bustling streets, listening and observing. A merchant taught him about trade. A scribe showed him the power of the written word. A builder explained the foundation of strong structures. Every lesson was a stepping stone, shaping his mind for the future. But deep within the city, something was waiting, an opportunity unlike any other, one that would test everything he had learned so far. As the boy explored the city, he came across a large courtyard where a crowd had gathered. In the center stood a man in fine robes, his voice booming over the murmuring spectators. "The ruler of this city seeks an apprentice, one who is wise, strong, and determined. But only those who pass the hidden challenge will be considered." Excitement surged through the boy. This was the opportunity he had been waiting for. The challenge was simple in appearance. 3 locked chests stood before the contestants. One held gold, one held knowledge, and one held nothing. Each participant had one chance to choose. Some rushed forward, picking at random, hoping for wealth. Others hesitated, fearing failure. But the boy stood still, thinking. The mysterious man's words echoed in his mind. Success is not about rushing forward blindly, but about knowing what to do with the chance given. Then, he saw it. Small, nearly unnoticeable scratches on the lock of one chest. It had been opened and relocked many times. With steady hands, he chose that one. When the chest opened, the crowd gasped. Inside were scrolls of wisdom, lessons from great minds, and maps leading to more knowledge. The ruler smiled. You have chosen well. For knowledge builds wealth, but wealth without wisdom is soon lost. The boy had passed the test, but his greatest journey was just beginning. The ruler stepped forward, his piercing gaze fixed on the boy. You have proven yourself wise beyond your years, he said. But wisdom alone is not enough. You must decide, will you stay and learn under my guidance, or will you forge your own path? The boy's heart pounded. He had dreamed of reaching this moment. Yet he never imagined having to choose so soon. Staying meant stability, mentorship, and access to knowledge beyond his imagination. But leaving meant adventure, freedom, and the chance to build something truly his own. He looked around. The city was grand, but it was not his home. He thought of the village he had left behind, the simple lessons his parents had taught him, and the promise he had made to himself to create a future built on more than just his own success. Taking a deep breath, he knelt before the ruler. I am honored, but my journey is not yet complete, he said. There is more I must learn beyond these walls. The ruler studied him for a moment, then nodded. Then take this, he said, handing the boy a golden seal. Wherever you go, this will open doors for you. It is a mark of your wisdom and determination. As the boy walked away, the weight of the seal in his palm, he knew his journey was far from over. But now, he carried more than just dreams. He carried proof that he was ready for whatever came next. With the golden seal clutched in his hand, the boy stepped beyond the palace gates, his heart steady with purpose. The road ahead stretched wide, the horizon filled with endless possibilities. He had faced trials, learned from the wise, and proven his worth, but now, he had to chart his own destiny. As he traveled, he encountered people who sought his guidance. A struggling farmer in need of better ways to grow crops. A merchant unsure of how to expand his trade. A young child eager to learn, but with no one to teach him. The boy listened, advised, and shared what he had learned, realizing that true success was not just about wealth or titles. It was about lifting others up. One evening, as he rested beneath an old tree, he looked up at the stars. He remembered the little boy he once was, dreaming in his village, shaping his future with determination and hope. He was no longer just a dreamer. He was a builder, a guide, and a symbol of what was possible through perseverance. His journey was far from over, but he no longer feared the unknown. He was ready for whatever lay ahead.